Together, growing in faith, changing communities.
Together, growing in faith, changing communities. My dear brothers and sisters, today I would like us to reflect on the Gospel of Luke chapter 15, verses 3 to verse 7. Jesus tells a parable and he says, what a person or which one amongst you having 100 sheep, if that person has lost one of them, which one amongst you will not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which he has lost until he finds it? I want to unpack and tease out the dilemma which Jesus presents to us today. The first one, the shepherd leaves home with 100 sheep, hoping to come back home with 100 sheep. But unfortunately, he does not, and he is unable to bring home the 100 sheep because one of them has been lost. And so the first thing I want to look into is a sense of loss. Have you ever lost something valuable in your life? A parent, a spouse, a child. That kind of loss is quite different because it brings with it a sense of neglect, a sense of permanent loss. Because that kind of loss talks about death. I know that I've known someone and I know that this person is now dead. And so this person is lost to me. Even though my faith in God allows me to hope for a better tomorrow. That I hope that one day we shall be reunited in the resurrection. But if we were to take the resurrection aside and deal with the loss that death presents to us, we soon realize that is a painful loss. Often I've met people who said, at the grief of a lost one, a part of me has died with him or her. Sometimes we can lose ourselves. We no longer know how to be because we've lived most of our lives with the people that have died. There's also another kind of loss. Loss of employment. Losing your financial independence can be troublesome for most of us. Especially if you are an independent person. If you have people that look up to you and expect that you provide for them. Loss of employment without any means of survival can somehow reduce you into things you never thought of yourself. Number one, it challenges the ladder of our own existence, security. During COVID, I know in my own family how some of them were threatened to lose not only their homes, their jobs, and their cars, and possibly their marriage. This also affects us, especially when we see our value based on what I can do rather than on who I am. Once I'm unable to provide, it is easy to see myself as a failure. It is easy to see myself as nothing but a nuisance. I beg and I ask. And there are those who will be willing to help, but there are those who are always willing to exploit. There is also another sense of loss, losing yourself. We can lose ourselves while we are trying to fit in with a particular group or particular mentality. I no longer do that which I want to do. I do what you expect of me. But deep down, I'm not happy. Deep down, I know this is not who I am. But I need to do it in order to be accepted by you. But there's also another sense of loss. What will I say when I come back home having failed in life? I've met quite a number of people who have failed and who are afraid of going back home because they are expected to come back home with good results. And somehow we have managed, unfortunately, to equate that level of pass as a sense of our own intelligence. I think it was Einstein who said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, that fish will die thinking it is stupid. There are certain things I can do, and I can do them quite well, and there are quite a number of other things that I cannot do. I fail at them dismally. But I need to strike the balance, to know your strengths and to know your weaknesses. There's another element that I want to bring in this story. It is the determination that Jesus has for the one he has lost. That is willing to leave everything behind and go and rescue. While we had the floods a couple of weeks ago, if not months from now, I did a funeral. There was a funeral of a husband and a wife who both died because of the mudslide, early hours of the morning. But as I buried those two, right in front of me was the family. And in the family there was this young boy. This young boy was also in the house with the siblings. The young boy also became a victim of the mudslides because he was stuck. Everything had fallen on top of him. And the rescuers came and they saw him and they said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. We need to go. Now, psychologically, this young man was left to die because they said, we cannot help you. No matter how much he tried, they told him, we cannot approach you because our lives will also be threatened. They by then left the mother and the father because they were dead. And for them, they said, we can no longer help them. They're already dead. Let's go and look for those who are leaving. But when they found the one who was still alive, they realized approaching him will bring danger not only to him but to them. And so they say, we have to leave you. And he looked at them and he wanted help, but they said they can't. It was the screaming and the shouting of his sister that made them stop and change their minds. And she refused to allow her brother to die like that. So she went to her brother and she started to dig. As she was digging, others came and eventually they rescued him. But I value her determination, because had she not done that, he would have died. Do you have someone like that in your life? Someone who worries about you. Someone who checks on you. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine whom I studied with in the priesthood was killed. And we suspect that he was killed on a Friday. He was a priest living in the missions. The young man got in, they tied him, and they stabbed him about over 70 stab wounds. Must have happened on a Friday, late at night, or early hours of a Saturday morning, but nobody knew. How did we become aware that he was dead when he did not pitch for Mass on Sunday? And people went around his house and they looked for him. Obviously, everything was locked. The car was inside the garage. And they had to pick and they couldn't find him. Then they broke in and they found him, and the first thing that greeted them was a smell, because his body had already given in. Do you have someone who checks on you? Allow the concept that God has for us today. In the first reading, in the prophet Ezekiel, I will search for my lost sheep. I myself will look for them. I will gather them from wherever they are scattered. My dear brothers and sisters, can I be lonely in a room full of people? Yes, I can. Can I be lost when everybody else thinks I'm okay and I'm well off? Yes, I can. Human beings have been so good at wearing a mask that says everything is okay, but underneath, I'm dying. Do you have a friend that can see through your mask? May the Virgin Mother of God continue to bless, protect, and guide us, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.